don't think just of yourself, but think how you can help others. So I go into Krav Maga, which apparently is one of the roughest forms of martial arts. We read scriptures together every day as a family. We prayed every day as a family. And we sat and we talked every day as a family.
Hello, and welcome to the Brenton Peck Podcast. Today's guest is Elizabeth. She was raised in New York and lived most of her life in New Hampshire. She was married for 50 years and has 3 boys that she homeschooled on a small farm. Thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So with the homeschooling, I remember you told me you were one of the first homeschoolers in New Hampshire.
Yeah, there were only 11 families in the whole state that were homeschooling, and you were really on your own. We didn't have all the pre-made curriculums now. You had to develop your own curriculum, and actually you had to fight quite the legal battle to be able to do it.
What did it look like to do curriculum? I mean, I was homeschooled, but that was much more curriculum has been put out for homeschoolers now.
Well, you just had to research. I went to a lot of different schools and a lot of and got what they were doing with their children at different ages and what books they recommended, schools that I liked, and put together what the average, say, 3rd grader did or 5th grader, and sort of developed there. We were more unschooled than we homeschooled. My children really advanced very quickly, but nevertheless, we really did very little sit down and at the table and academically work. We did a lot out of nature and out of outside. And
was that more kind of like the Socratic method?
Yes, much more so. And every year I would ask my kids, do you want to go back to school or do you want to go? 2 of them had gone to school for a year. But do you want to homeschool or do you want to continue back to school with your friends? And they always chose to homeschool because we would do a lot of things. We would go fishing and then dissect the fish, and we'd go into the woods and learn about the different trees, and we raised our own food, and we did a lot with that. We actually one year built our own house. Literally, we had somebody put in the foundation, and we built the house from the foundation up as a project.
And so everybody took part in that?
Everybody took part in that.
Nice.
I have pictures of me with 3 little children and my husband up on top of a 2nd-story roof, roofing the house. And oh yeah, we all did that.
Nice. Were there a lot of regulations back then there are now that kind of restrict, you need a engineer to sign off on blueprints?
For the house?
Yeah.
Well, we designed it actually. My husband just drew it up on a piece of paper and nicely, and he brought it to the town, and they gave the approval. We did the electrical and the plumbing too. We did have to have an electrician review it and a plumber review it when it was finished and sign off on it. But in reality, we did all of it, and the regulations were not as heavy back then. It was early 80s, and this was rural New Hampshire, so it wasn't as heavy.
Yeah. What were some of the activities that were enjoyed most for homeschooling? Like how did that all feed into each other?
Well, we kept the library going, let me tell you. We would bring large boxes and just go through the place, and we would bring home lots of books, and I taught them how to read using cooking. So, for instance, it's so much more fun learning how to read, putting together chocolate chip cookies or a lemon meringue pie than it is to learn reading off of a dull book. I also would take them and find out what they were interested in. If I had a child interested in baseball and another one was interested in caves, I'd teach them reading off of a baseball book or a cave book. So it was all learning on what they wanted to do. And the learning was also just natural. Um, we'd with the little one who was just learning his alphabet, we'd go to Walmart and I'd just be so excited. Look, there's a W up there. It goes, what? And or we'd stop at all the cars and trace the letters on the and numbers on the license plates going into the store, or it was just learning from real life. And that's how we did it.
I've done a little bit of research, and that seems to be one of the more effective ways to teach, but we've kind of lost a lot of that in public schools because we've tried to generify everything to do one mold to fit everyone. It sounds like you were much more able to personalize, which then kept them interested in wanting to learn.
Yes, that's true, because everything we did, we learned off of what they wanted to learn, and that made everything much more exciting. So yeah, that was, I don't know how to describe it. We didn't have the regulations as much because homeschooling was so new. In fact, and my kids did very, very well. We did have them tested every year, mostly to keep the wolves off away from the door. And they always tested very well, enough that eventually the state of New Hampshire called me and one other mother in and asked us to write the laws for homeschooling, which we did, and we got them passed.
Nice.
So, which was obviously very loose laws at the time.
They've probably tightened up a lot of stuff
They may
too
have.
much now.
They probably have, yes. They probably have. But everything was really learning as we went. I mean, some of our math was when I'd go shopping, each child would have a different aisle to go down as we go together. But you had to learn how to estimate and add in your head, and by the end of the aisle, how much did we spend on this aisle? And then the next aisle, the next child would do that, and it was just a natural thing for us.
Nice.
So
I remember being homeschooled. One thing we did was tie, kind of like you did, not quite as much, but tie into things we liked. So it was, if we're going to do some gardening, well, we can learn about some of the plants we're putting in. Or we talked about, I don't think we ever did, but we talked about, if we're working in the garden, then maybe we can sell the vegetables to mom and dad for what they would have paid at the store or something. Like, we do the work and then we can earn some of that back. I don't remember if we actually did it, but we always had different things kind of like that to tie things in.
Yeah. Another thing we did, which was really different, is the children, of course, like everybody else, like things like MacGyver. And so I would tape MacGyver, and I'd let them watch the first half of MacGyver or whatever the show was, okay? And then they couldn't see the second half until they went and wrote the second half. So they all had to, that was their writing. Some of it was, they had to come up with what he would have done or what the cowboy would have done in that situation and finish the story. And then when everybody finished the story, we watched the end.
Nice. That sounds like a more interesting way to learn writing, because I think a lot of writing now is, okay, here's something you already have, now rephrase it, or we're going to walk you through each step instead of allowing your imagination to come out onto paper.
Yep. Yeah. We also kept journals regularly, and they learned to write and to read using the journals. So they had their own books.
Nice.
So we really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Homeschooling then, were you like a stay-at-home mom while your husband worked?
Yes. Yeah, I was a stay-at-home mom while my husband worked. It was I don't know how I would have done it any other way. But yes, I was.
Yeah. I know homeschooling can take less time than public schools. You get through a lot more curriculum faster usually. So I know some people have tried where both parents still work and then you do maybe some school in the evening or something, but that seems like it would be a massive headache.
I would think it would be, but I'm sure parents can do it.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure. One of the things that I was determined that I really wanted my kids to be more creative thinkers than they would be in school. And, when you go to school, you get on the bus and you behave this way, and then you get off the bus and you play in the playground here like this, and then you go into the school and you take off your coat and you put it here, and then you sit at your desk and you take that book out. And it's so regimented that one day, this is what started my homeschooling, is one day I'm in the kitchen with my 6-year-old, and I said, "And what are you going to be when you grow up?" And I'm expecting something exciting, cowboy, an astronaut. And he said, "I don't know. They haven't assigned me anything yet." And I thought, oh, nobody's going to run my child's brain like that. He didn't go back to school the next day, and none of the kids did. So
the public school system, a lot of people don't know, was built originally to create essentially soldiers.
yes, it was.
And for factory workers for the Industrial Revolution, train people into set time schedules and monotony repeated.
Yeah.
And just following instruction, period.
And learn to enjoy the monotony.
Yeah. It wasn't even so much about the education. It was preparing them for those two things, either going into a factory or being a good soldier.
That's right. That's right. And so I was not going to produce good soldiers, although I have to say one joined the military for 22 years. But nevertheless, I wanted them to at least be very creative.
Yeah. It's interesting thing on the military. When I was in college, I had to write a paper, and like the military has an entrance exam, the ASVAB. And a lot of people question, like, why? You're just going to go in, they're going to teach you, and then you just do what you're told. But there's actually been a lot of studies done, and intelligence in the field you're going into has a high correlation to how much you're going to cost the military.
That's right.
If I'm going to be in leadership and I can't think creatively, then, I may make dumb decisions that may cost them millions, versus if I can creatively adapt or adjust or provide alternative solutions, then I can save them money.
That's right.
They found that in everything from like infantry on the cost of bullets. A more intelligent person was going to expend less bullets, or shoot off less missiles or stuff like that. So it was interesting to me to see that creativity, and not just like raw, pure intelligence, analytical thinking, book smarts, but intelligence framed in the adaptability, creative light. Because, there's lots of different definitions of intelligence, but
yes.
I think we've done a disservice in not teaching people to be as creative, because that's a harder skill to learn.
That's right. It really is. It really is. I mean, the school wants to get them all to the same level. I can remember being visiting a school, and there was one child who they knew had an IQ of 138. Brilliant child. And the school was not excited about this. They were very upset that they had this one child that kind of stuck out. But they said, "Don't worry about it. Give us some time and we'll get her down. We'll get her to be like the others." And I thought, oh my gosh, how sinful that is. How sinful.
Yeah. I don't know if Einstein actually said it, but I think it was attributed to Einstein. Like, you can't judge intelligence, and I'm butchering this. You can't judge intelligence by asking why a fish can't fly. Like, if you only measure on your ability to fly, of course, birds are going to appear more intelligent and fish will appear stupid. But it's like, we can be incredibly intelligent in certain areas, but maybe not have the ideal IQ or however you want to measure it. And so it's like, we need to teach people in their areas of natural gifts.
Yes, I agree. And that was one of the things with homeschooling. I could teach them where they were interested.
Yeah.
So that worked out well.
So the school district asked you to go to be a teacher. How were you able to make that transition? Because you pulled them out of the public school system.
Well, I didn't go back to school to become a teacher until they were older and much more independent. And my husband worked a job that he was home some days. So I went to school about that point. And what happened was I had petitioned the school, and I was pushing for this, that the children would be able to go for a class or two. And I'd still homeschool. So maybe they went for music. Maybe they went for mechanical and, drafting or something like that. And so I got that incorporated into the school district. And that's how they came to know me. And they knew how well the children were doing. And so they said, would you work with other kids and go to school and get a degree, and we'll hire you when you're finished homeschooling.
So were you inspired to go into the school to feel like maybe you could change things and have an impact there?
I was still a little too creative. I went back and I got a degree in special education. And at that point we moved out of that school district, so it wasn't applying, and I moved to New Mexico and worked there, and I was a little too creative for them. I went to a school in New Mexico that was a boarding school only for special education students that were not doing well in the regular public school. And I had such academic freedom there, that it was just wonderful. I mean, I taught biology and ecology and geology, and we went to the mines in New Mexico, and every month we would measure chemical water levels, different above the mine and at the mine and below the mine. And we just did I had a total academic freedom, and to teach the kids what I wanted and how I wanted.
Nice.
And that was wonderful.
When you say special education, are you meaning what a lot of people think of like special needs, or you mean possibly gifted, just a broad spectrum?
Not gifted at all, no. And not disciplinary problems either. Not the emotionally disabled, but just kids that were academically failing in other schools that couldn't get through. And
okay.
when you'd have a kid that was an artist, and she could not do science worth beans. She just didn't interest her. She didn't know how. She would freeze up on it. So I just had her answer all of the art questions. All of the science questions artistically. Draw me what it is and describe it. I had another student who couldn't write. He would write letters home, prolific letters, pages. But when you handed him a test, he could barely put his name on it. He would freeze up that badly. So I said, don't answer the test. Just tell me, just look at the outline for the questions and write to me like I'm your Aunt Sally or something, or your mom or whatever, and just tell me about what you learned. Just try to incorporate those questions in. And he just blossomed. So I had total freedom for how I handled the students and how I taught them and how I evaluated them.
Nice. I remember a phrase, anyone can endure the how if they know the why.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of kids, a lot of students that we don't give them any whys. It's just, this is what you're going to learn. This is how you're going to learn it. And kids are smarter than we give them credit to.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not interested in that. I don't think that way. If you just listen to me, I'll tell you how I think, what I'm interested in, and then you can teach me everything through that route. And that applies to a lot of people. I've talked about autism on different episodes, and it's like a lot of people view autism as just a disability. But in my experience, those are incredibly gifted, intelligent people in an area of expertise to them.
Yes.
And they can learn a lot of the rest of stuff that maybe they struggle with when framed through that.
Mm-hmm.
So, you think of TV shows come to mind, like Young Sheldon.
Mm-hmm.
And if you could phrase anything in physics, okay, he was going to learn it. If you were going to try and tell him in psychology,
it was all gone.
Yeah. But
yes.
You just learn to phrase things in the way that people speak to you, which honestly is the point of communication. You have to know your audience. Like we're taught
Mm-hmm.
that about giving speeches and even writing papers, know your audience.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't feel like we're taught that in teaching people. Know your student, know your audience, know the way they learn, and each person's going to be different. And the larger the classroom size, really you try more and more and more just to cookie cutter it and
Yeah.
one method for everyone, which I feel like fails a lot of
Yeah.
students.
No, I don't think I had any two students in the classroom doing the same thing,
Mm-mm.
or was being taught the same way in a way,
Yeah.
It's just different.
I think back to me being homeschooled, I couldn't write cursive at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think at one point they toyed around with me having dysgraphia.
Yes, I have dysgraphia and I can't write cursive.
Yep. But we didn't know that at the time. And so one of the
Mm-hmm.
things you did is like, no, here's the list of things we need to learn. So you're going to practice. So I practiced writing so much that my hand would hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And I got my print to the point you couldn't tell the difference between me and a typewriter for a long time because I had practiced it so much. But the only thing I ever really learned in cursive was signing my name, and that only through endless repetition. But what I guess I'm highlighting with that is I think the schools, a lot of them take the approach of if you just practice something enough, you'll get good at it, instead of necessarily the approach of like, I could read cursive, I just couldn't write it. So
Yeah.
at what point do you say is cursive writing really a necessary thing? And my mom was wonderful. We ended up letting cursive go because it's not a super important skill that everybody has to have. I mean, yeah, you should be able to read it, but there was better things I could be learning and practicing on than focusing in on filling out a checklist to make everybody this cookie cutter exactly the same.
That's right. That's right. That's how I worked it. But I was very much the same with cursive. I could get through maybe part of a sentence in cursive, and by the time I get to the end of the sentence, it's not readable.
Yep.
It's not readable.
I struggled most between swapping capitals. I'd end up with capitals in random places and punctuation in random places. It's like I could tell you exactly what I did wrong
Yeah.
after I was done with it, but
Yeah.
it didn't process while I was doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand. I really do.
And I was naturally mechanically inclined, I guess I would say. I liked to take stuff apart. I had fairly good spatial reasoning. My sister struggled with spatial reasoning. And so, like, I excelled. I believe we did Saxon math, and I excelled in it. It just made sense to me. But my sister struggled with it a little bit just because the spatial reasoning adjusted how you're processing mathematics.
Really?
And I forget if she went all the way through Saxon or if they adjusted that a little bit, but my bachelor's is actually in mathematics. And one of the things you actually learn is the best way to learn mathematics is almost a physics approach, where physics is so out there on stuff. The only way we can understand it is to try to visualize it, break it down into something smaller. But if you teach math that way, if you teach it in a way you can visualize, especially if someone struggles spatially, you can figure out how people think and visualize things and adjust how you're teaching things based on how they're processing. But now we just have Common Core.
Yes. Yes, I agree.
But, well, I'm curious, on the homeschooling where that was so new back then, did you have a lot of flack from the school district or from the state? What were the challenges
The
there?
school district would tell us they're looking for ways to take our children away. It was really, really very tough. It was a real legal battle. I was always on my toes for this. So, which is why they didn't require yet, because there were no laws. They didn't require annual testing, but I did it just because I thought I'm going to need this. And I had one. My pediatrician was on the school board, and he was very pro what I was doing. He was an incredibly creative man, and so I had to call him one day and say they're trying to take the kids because we homeschool, and he got involved and stopped that. But we were always on the lookout for for that danger.
Yeah.
We
Well, you were married for 50 years. How does some of that stress, especially with the kids, but also, threat of, well, they're going to try and take kids, how did that affect
um
relationship?
well, actually, I think it helped us be stronger because one of the things we did was we would sit down at least weekly. My husband and I would almost sit down daily and discuss how we were going to handle different things, so that we would be able to objectively show we're teaching them. And it was also how we handled our life as a husband and wife. We would sit down regularly and discuss what we were doing that day, that week, and it just would it just that type of stress was relieved because we were so united in what we did, and we communicated so much that my husband was a really good communicator. And unlike many, they say men don't talk as often as women do and don't communicate as well. My husband was not like that. He was very much of a communicator, and we sat and talked all the time and worked out how things were going to work.
Nice. I watch a lot of Jordan Peterson, and one of the
Oh,
things
I
he
love him.
advocates for is a minimum of 90 minutes a week with your spouse just on planning the domestic stuff. Who's going to do what chores, what needs done for the kids, or whatever it is, managing the house and everything with it, a minimum of 90 minutes a week. And I
We
think,
did that. We did that before Jordan Peterson ever came along. That was just how we ran. We read scriptures together every day as a family. We prayed every day as a family, and we sat and we talked every day as a family. We had dinner together and we discussed issues all the time, and we easily put in 90 minutes a week, if not more than that. But that continued right until he died. He died of COVID. We were both missionaries at the church orchard over in Marsing. But even then, we did different shifts on as missionaries, but we talked. Every day we would sit down. He would just sit down at the table and open up his scriptures, and he wouldn't say anything if I was busy. He just sat back and waited, and I would sometimes see him, realize what he's doing, and I would just take my scriptures and walk over and sit down, and we'd read together, and then we discuss that type of stuff. What are you doing and where are you going? Constant communication is what we did.
I I think a lot of people don't focus on communication enough, and this goes
Mhm.
for me as well. Um, but without communication of some sort, and not just verbally, but facial expressions,
Mhm.
body language, touch, whatever it is, without communication, you almost can't have relationships. And so, the better the communication, in a lot of ways, the stronger that bond can be, the more connected and united you can be.
I would agree with that completely. I would have to say that we didn't fight with each other either because we constantly were communicating. We were constantly sitting down like you and I are sitting and talking. And so I don't know that we've really had, if there was any conflict, which there rarely was really, because it was just a normal thing for us from the beginning of our marriage on. I don't know how we picked up on that, as I say, long before Jordan Peterson, but basically that we did that.
I think it's a skill that's been declining over generations.
That could be. That could be.
One of the contentions I hold comparing America to other countries is we are incredibly individualistic. So it's all about me, 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 me.
Mhm.
And we isolate ourselves more. Add social media on top of that. And it's like, I think it was something like 1 or 5% of total population you can predict on average to be like a sociopath or
Mm-hmm.
narcissistic or something. Um, but you take away the consequences of in-person interaction and you do it behind an alias or something online, and that behavior goes way up. We're less considerate of people, but we're also not connecting with as many people and definitely not as deeply as people used to. Um, I mean, the most trite example might be multiple page long love letters several decades ago to 2-second text messages today.
Mm-hmm.
There may be more quantity of interaction via texting because it goes back and forth so fast, but the same level of depth and thought wasn't put into planning out a letter you might send or leave. So I feel like the depth of conversation has really shrunk.
We, I would agree with you completely on that. I really would. And one of the things I would say is that because we've become such a me environment, that was again something we did differently, was that we were always looking to serve. We one year we had really no money for Christmas. It was just really a bad year. And I couldn't buy anything for my husband for Christmas. So what I did was I had a canning jar and I cut pieces of paper, 52 of them, and I put different special things I would do for him. I'll make you brownies this week. I'll do your chores that week. And every week he got to pick something different. But the whole idea is that I don't think we appreciate each other enough and what we do. And that is so vital. It is so vital. Um, you hear people talk about um, losing a spouse and the things you miss. Like somebody will say, "Oh, I can't stand his snoring," or how his table manners are, or whatever. All of a sudden, you don't have that. You miss it. But if you serve each other constantly, but I mean, give of yourself and serve each other. It's a very different environment if you're focusing on that. Um, One of the things, again, my husband did, and we did as a family, is we would look for ways to help other people. We really taught our kids to look outside of themselves. And my husband would just do that. I found somebody one day. Um, I was driving some back road of New Hampshire, and this family is out there with little kids, and the dad is hammering away at a shack, well, a beginning of a house. And I realized, and I stopped and talked with him, and he says, "Yeah, I'm trying to build a house. I'm trying to get it, you know, closed in by winter." And I went home and told my husband, and he just got a group together, and they went out and they went to this man regularly until they got his house sealed in so they could live in it. But he constantly looked for ways to serve others, and we taught the boys to do that. So enough that when one of them got married, his wife called up and said, "Why is he driving down the road all the time and finding somebody to stop and help?" And I said, "Well, because that's how we raise them. Don't think just of yourself, but think how you can help others." And I think that whole mechanics of thinking of others is important. And also really appreciating them, and saying how much you appreciate the help with the dishes tonight. I really appreciate you helping pull the laundry out of the dryer. And not just that it happened, but let them know that you really appreciated that. And you'd be surprised how much they'll do the same. And I think that really strengthens people,
Yeah.
strengthens the family.
I have like 3 thoughts that came up. Um, One is a book by Dennis Prager. Um, it's called Happiness is a Serious Problem. And in it, he argues happiness is a moral obligation because our moods affect those around us. And so as you're talking about that, I'm thinking that applies not just to happiness, but like gratitude. If you approach people with gratitude, they're going to feel valued. They're going to feel more connected. Like, so I would extend Dennis Prager's statement and say gratitude is a moral obligation.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And then, I forgot where I was going with the other. There was another. Another thing Jordan Peterson said that's really kind of twisted my mind a little bit. Now I'm completely blanking it. It was there and it's gone. Yeah, I'm sure it'll come back. He talks a lot about happiness in a slightly different context. Kind of, he studied evil, right? And the depths that people could go. And one of the things that came out of his studies is that there's almost no difference between focusing on yourself and being miserable.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
So, like, the more you focus on other people and you express that gratitude or you help them out, you make things about other people and not yourself, the happier you tend to be. So it's kind of like an inverse of the more the more miserable I'm going to be.
Yeah. Yep. I would agree with that.
And yeah. That one always intrigues me. I always come back and have to think about that one a little bit.
Yeah, our church put out this website, justserve.org, and anybody can contribute to it. Not our church, just everybody can contribute to it. Where if they have a need, Salvation Army needs somebody for Tuesday night to serve whatever, they can put it on there, and you can just go on there and put your zip code in and find out a way that you can serve. And that fits your timeline and your location, and so you can get out there and serve others.
Nice.
It's because it's very important to be out of yourself.
There was have you read Lord of the Rings?
Yes, but it was a long time ago.
Or maybe, I don't remember if it was Lord of the Rings. I think it was Lord of the Rings. At the very start, when it's Bilbo's 111th birthday, the Hobbit tradition is instead of receiving gifts on your birthday, you give gifts
on your birthday. Yes.
Yeah. So I think Tolkien was hitting on that same thing. You're happier when you're focused on other people.
Yes, I would agree.
And that reminds me of the final part I was thinking of. In studying a little bit of anthropology, one of the things that binds people together is social indebtedness, which is one of the reasons we have things like birthday parties, or why there used to be like wedding dowries, is you're giving a gift and then you're indebted to me. Now you are going to give a gift reciprocally, and then it's a back and forth indebtedness that brings us closer and closer and closer. But what you're doing by that is you're not demanding something first, you're giving. Again, you're focusing on the other person. So I think that's, again, demonstrated anthropologically,
Yep. That's very interesting. I had not heard that one.
Yeah. I forget if I encountered that in my anthropology class or if that was cultural anthropology. It might have been cultural, which was a really fun class.
I like that idea. It's your birthday, giving gifts to others instead, or going out and doing things for others instead of expecting everybody to come and celebrate you.
Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful idea. That would be quite a change in our society. I think that's
I don't know if you could get people to do it. I think it would be great.
Gosh, I think that's a great idea.
My parents and our family toyed a little bit with doing something like that. Instead of doing Christmas gifts for everybody, decide on a charity and we'll all just donate and give to that charity that year, or do something different like that.
That's a great idea. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
But that's one of the hard things with how you adapt. If you look at it from that anthropological perspective, if you invite me to your birthday party, I go and I give you a present, right? Now you're indebted to go to my party and give me something. This inverts that, where I'm going to invite you and give you something. So now instead of inviting me so I can give you something, you're going to invite me so you can give me something. Like, it's a complete inversion
It
there.
is a
That would
complete
be,
inversion, but frankly, I like it.
yeah, it would be interesting to play out.
It really would be. Yes, really would be.
But I don't think anything can be reduced to a single thing. I think there's complexities in everything. But I think as a whole, the fact that we're so individualistic, especially when you look, I mean, you look at like the Asian countries, and some other ones, and I forget the term, if it's holistic. I don't think it's holistic,
Organic.
but communal, very focused on, a lot of them are, family reputation focused, but more than that, it's whatever organization you're in, whether it's your family structure or your business structure, like, you're committed to that company. You carry their values and respect. You're a representative of them. America, we're a lot more, what are you going to give me? Why should I work for you? Like, we're
That's
very
really true.
entitled.
Yes. Yes, we really are, and we shouldn't be. We shouldn't be. It should be more giving.
Yeah. I'm curious how we could affect some of those changes, but I always come back to, a lot of people want to change things at an organizational structure. It's like the only way to really change things is to change ourselves individually, and then that has an effect and starts to spread out.
Yeah. I know one family that they don't do any gifts at Christmas with their children. They do birthday gifts, but they don't do any gifts at Christmas. The whole Christmas is focusing on giving to others, because this is what Christ would have done.
Yeah.
So, and I thought, I wish I had thought of that when I had young children. That it just would have produced a whole different environment there.
Yeah. When you were talking about doing your jar for your husband, we went through Love Inc. at one point, and there was a period, we, in part of going through the program, we committed, instead of doing Christmas this year, we're going to put any and all money we would spend on gifts into paying bills. And then they hosted like a craft event where we went in and we made some different stuff. We made some canned coffee, or which was like, some instant coffee, some hot chocolate, maybe some marshmallows. We made some canned meals where they had the different beans, and so you could come up with a different recipe and create the unique meals
in
you
a
wanted
jar,
to do.
yeah.
Yep. And we had a lot of fun things like that. And honestly, it's fun to get gifts every now and again, but going and doing that together with my wife was fun. Like, going and doing those activities together is more enjoyable a lot of times than just opening a present.
Yes.
My parents a long time ago, whether it was for like Mother's Day or Father's Day, said they would rather us do something together than receive a gift. So if you absolutely insist on doing something for us, take us out to a restaurant, sit down, spend some time, have a meal, rather than just buy me something and leave it. Like,
right.
Go for things we can do together.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
But I want to take it back kind of to the homeschooling time when you were building the house with your husband. What does that look like, building a house when you're also working and homeschooling?
Oh, that was probably our roughest year. It was really tough, especially because we had we were homeless that year. We were in a house, and we sold the house, and we sunk the money into the land and the materials. But my husband was working full time, so we were going to just live in an apartment. Well, in New Hampshire, because we had not been in an apartment, we didn't know this, okay? In New Hampshire, in the summer, the apartments go up 3 times. They increase in price dramatically. So now we are without money except the weekly income coming in, and we could not afford the apartment prices. So we ended up living in a tent with 3 children for 4 months. That was a very tough time. But I don't know where you were going with this, and I don't know if I just went off the road on that. So we would be in this tent, and we'd go over to the house because the town would not allow us to live on the property at the time, and we would go over to the house and nail some boards together, and some people did help us out a bit, and it was a tough time, but we did it. We put up every blasted wall and every window and every piece of insulation and every shingle, and yeah, we did it.
I can't imagine being in a tent for 4 months.
It was incredibly difficult. It was incredibly difficult. It really was.
Where were you able to do that if they wouldn't let you be on the property?
Well, we were in back of somebody else's property with their permission, but the town did not know about it. And when they found out, we had to get off the property. But that's what we did. We lived. So we were homeless for 4 months with 3 little kids.
Goodness.
It was a tough time.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It was probably a huge relief when the house was finished.
It was a huge relief. Yeah, I mean, the house was never finished till we sold it. We moved in and we were just so relieved that, we didn't care if the molding is on or the whatever, but when we finally moved in, it was a great relief. A great relief. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How did kids handle that? Like, were you homeschooling right at that same time?
Well, most of it was over the summer, but we did homeschool at that time to some extent because we didn't have years that began in September and ended in June. It was such a natural thing for us that we kind of went all year long. So we had books with us, and we just read and did stuff and did the continual, as part of life, schooling. John Holt, who was kind of a founder with homeschooling, would call it unschooling. But so we did that. I mean, we're always studying something, somewhere. And let's see. I don't think it bothered the children as much as it bothered us, because we realized we're working. My husband's working full time at a reasonable job, and we can't afford an apartment. And so to us, it was a burden. Quite frankly, it was a burden. But I don't think the kids realized. I thought they would probably they just thought it was part of homeschooling. Now, instead of going out to the park to do reading and look at flowers and weeds and study the wildlife, they probably thought we were just having fun, in a different way. Camping, Everybody, we went camping for 4 months, They probably view it differently than I did.
I can definitely imagine they would. Kids have a sense of wonder we lose.
Yes. I'd go outside and they'd be up a tree and climbing trees and running through the woods, and they probably thought it was just delightful.
Yeah.
I didn't, but they did.
I wanted to go back to that time because, like, you guys communicated, you and your husband communicated a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But especially during challenging times like that, you see a lot of people nowadays break up. Like, oh, it's excuses like it's just not worth it or it's not working out. And it's like, I wish people would be willing to put in more work and understand that relationships are worth it. But I'm curious, like, beyond the communication, what kept you guys strong and moving forward and hopeful? Because I mean, that was a burden. Yes, you knew you had the stable income, but there had to be days where it's like,
oh,
how are we ever going to get out of this tent?
No kidding. Yeah, they really were. I think, again, I think it's partly our faith, our religious beliefs. We belong to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So we believe that families are sealed together for eternity, not just married till death do you part. And so there's a whole different look at life that way. So I don't think, I never thought of leaving him because I thought this is the way this is just what we're going through. I didn't like it at all. It was very hard. But as I say, we just focused on our faith, on what we had to do to move forward. Let's get through one more day, just one more day, and so that's really how we survived it.
Yeah. My wife and I decided a long time ago that we were going to ban a word from our marriage.
Which is?
Divorce.
Yes. Well, we had decided that too. My husband's mother had been married multiple times. And so even before we were married, we made that commitment that we are not going to do that. We are just not going to do that.
Yep.
And so that was not an option.
Yeah, it's never been an option. We banned it not just like this isn't an option, but some people say stuff out of being upset or say things they'll regret. And we made that decision like, this isn't even a word we're going to toss around joking. It's not something we're going to say when we're upset. It's not an option. We are deeply committed to each other. So why would we ever joke like that? It's not something we want to take lightly or make light of or entertain or anything. It's not something you want your kids hearing just thrown around lightly. Like they need that secure, stable family. So, I mean, you hear some people throw it around and joke about it, and that's just something we decided, no, we're not even going to say the word in the house.
Yeah, we did much the same. We did that. We never discussed that. It was never an option on the table. It was never discussed, never thought of. But in addition, even between us, we also made sure that we never spoke negatively of other people in front of the children either. Now, that doesn't mean we didn't have negative feelings about somebody else, but we made sure that they never heard us talking negatively of others either. In addition to never speaking negatively about their other parent, I never would have spoken negatively against their dad, and he would not have done that to me. But we also made that commitment not to speak of other people like that. Sometimes we would talk alone when we were totally alone about the crazy lady over there or something, but we never would speak negatively about people.
Yeah.
Or the other spouse.
We definitely don't speak ill of each other in front of the kids as much as we can. We try not to speak ill of each other at all. I can't always say we've been the best at not following your model of not. I don't want to say necessarily speaking bad. Like, I don't think we just speak bad at people around the kids or in general, but sometimes you say things that maybe aren't the most positive, and we've both after the fact, maybe we shouldn't have let the kids hear that. And it's not even anything negative, but you want the kids brought up with positivity and not looking down, judging people, not. So even something you say that might be completely innocent, it's not judging, it's not looking down on. Someone hearing without context can take it that way. And so I feel like we're constantly going back. I wish they really hadn't heard that because they don't have context.
Yeah, no, we didn't. We just didn't. We made that commitment openly to do that. So, and we were very supportive of each other. He did a lot of Boy Scout stuff, go off camping with the guys, and he supported me through school multiple times. So I went for several different degrees. So, he was always very supportive. But we just would not be negative about somebody.
I like that.
So it was a commitment.
There was a study, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but I've referenced it a couple times. It's like one of the indicators of, I believe, social status, meaning like low income, middle or high income, is number of words spoken to a child and ratio of positive to negative words. So kids who had not as many words spoken to them and had, say, a ratio of 75% negative versus 25% positive had a high likelihood of being low income. Kids who were spoken to a lot more and had, say, 75% positive, 25% negative, had a high likelihood of being middle or high income. And it's like the words that we speak, the amount of words we speak is, again, that communication, which is going to help you interact with people. But B, the positive versus negative literally affects how you view life. If you talk in a positive manner, you're going to see things much more positively.
Yes.
Even if you're struggling to see that way. But if you always talk about things negatively, then you're going to see things negatively.
That's right. That's right. One of the things I noticed, and this involves homeschooling and also the attitude of how you talk about other people, was my children never grew up with the thought, with any negative thoughts. There were 3 boys of girls being any less. In fact, one time we were looking at the book of presidents. I was going to teach them about the presidents of the United States, and I opened up the book and had all the presidents' pictures. And my son said, "Well, where are the women presidents?" I mean, it didn't even occur to him because they were in such a different environment and how we spoke of people. So the friends they had, even growing up, were half of them were girls because we're one of 11 families homeschooling, and we get together, and half of them are girls. And they played with the girls as much as they played with the guys, and they never developed any negative thought about that. I don't know that I'm expressing that well enough.
No, I think you're doing great.
So, so we didn't have any of the bias because we never said, you can't do that, you're a guy, or you can't do that, you're a girl, because everybody was just people.
Yeah. One of the things we chose to do more recently, maybe a year or 2 ago, was to increase the positivity. Everybody on Thanksgiving, let's go around the table. What's everyone thankful for? Well, now we do that intentionally every meal. We pray, and then we all go around the table and say something we're thankful for, because we want to instill that gratitude in our kids. Don't want entitlement and me. What are you thankful for? What are you grateful for? What's making everybody happy and better?
That's what we did partly with our journals with the children, when we're teaching them to write and teaching them to read. So when we started with the reading, they would tell me what to write, and I'd write 2 sentences, and then they'd read those 2 sentences. And then as they got older, they could write their own. But one of the things they had to put in there was put anything that you're thankful for. Every day they had to write something. I still have those journals.
Nice.
Any something you're thankful for.
Yeah.
So this was a focus in our lives. This was a deep focus. We didn't watch a lot of TV. I just was kind of anti-TV. I don't know that I should have been, but we watched very little when they were growing up. And so we just read a lot and did a lot together. We did everything together. My boys learned to crochet and to do needlepoint, and nobody ever thought about that as being more of a girl's thing. It was just the way it was.
Yeah.
So
I did a little cross stitching, I think, as a kid. I think part of that is that same thing. Like, we didn't think anything of it. Another part was, I have 2 sisters, and Dad was military, and we were homeschooled. So it's do the activities that the most people want to do together.
Yeah.
the flip side of that is my sisters loved daddy time. So when dad was home from work, they wanted to be in the kitchen and cook with him. So they actually learned to do cooking because dad was helping them. And I actually didn't learn to cook as much because they were stealing all the time.
Got it. My
But
husband was a cook. So
nice.
so my children learned an awful lot of cooking through him.
Yeah. That my first guest was my mom, and she referenced like due to some of her mental health at the time, like the kitchen, she could not cook.
Mm-hmm.
It was too overwhelming, too much anxiety. So dad always did all the cooking.
Oh, wow.
And so that was the time my sisters could steal with him.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Yeah.
That is great.
I only cook a few things now. I always challenge people, scrambled eggs are best with a hint of mustard in them. You do eggs, milk, and just a hint of mustard, like just a tiny little strip.
I had never thought of something like that.
It's fantastic.
I will try it.
It freaks people out at first, and then they try it and they love it.
I will try that.
And then the extra kicker is if you cook bacon first, and then you can cook the rest of the eggs in the bacon grease.
Bacon grease, yes.
Yep.
That one I'm familiar with. But the mustard, I'll give it a try tomorrow.
Yeah, it's good. And then one of the other things, I've won 3 or 4 different chili cook-offs now with
wow.
Cajun 15 bean chili.
Oh, wow.
It's one of those I make fairly spicy. People are fanning their mouths the whole time, but they can't stop eating it.
Oh, gosh. I do not like spicy things. I had signed up to do chili one night for a church social, and I realized, I'm not a great cook. It's just not. I can follow directions, but I'm not a great cook. I don't have an intuitive sense of it, as my husband and now my children have. But so I have just looked at this idea that I'm going to have to bring chili to church. I went to Costco and bought a number 10 can of chili and put it in a crock pot. I won the chili cook-off on that. So just so you know, I did tell people what I did, but before they knew that, I had won the chili cook-off with the Costco chili. So
nice.
there you go.
My approach to cooking is different. I have a weird intuition, maybe, where I can go into the pantry, into the fridge, into the spice cabinet, pick out things, look at them, maybe smell them, see what I think might go well together, throw something together, and I don't know, 9 out of 10 times it turns into a favorite meal.
Oh, gosh.
But you put a recipe book in front of me, and
it's over, huh?
No. I don't follow recipes super well.
Yeah, no, I don't enjoy cooking. I do an awful lot of juicing because I don't enjoy cooking. It's easy for me to just put it in a blender, add protein powder,
Yep.
and go with it. That's my fail-safe.
I had been doing my shakes for a while when I was more consistent on my workouts. I need to get back into that.
Yes, I understand that. I was trying to do some workouts this morning, and I thought, I have declined in 2 months that as you know, I do martial arts, or I did martial arts, did Krav Maga and Taekwondo, and due to an injury, I am out for 2 months, and oh my gosh, I didn't realize how much my body declined in 2 months. At 74, this is easy to do, but I've got to get back into it and do something about keeping in shape.
Yeah.
So
I was meaning to bring up the martial arts. What inspired you to get into the martial arts?
Oh, you wouldn't believe it. So, as I say, I don't watch a lot of TV. I don't watch a lot of movies. But I thought, here I am alone. I'm older. I'm in my 70s. And everybody talks about movies all the time. And I don't even know what they're talking about because I don't watch them. I thought, you ought to sit down and start watching some movies. So I picked out a Clint Eastwood movie, $1 Million Baby. And I watched that. And I was really intrigued by that. And here's this Frankie guy telling Maggie that she's too old to fight. I mean, too old to get into fighting. She's 31. And I thought, 31. 72, 31, 72. What's the difference? So I went out. I decided I was going to try this. I don't know. That was really my inspiration to trying it. And I went into an arbitrary martial arts school. And I'm not into the competition stuff. So At least I wasn't. And so I said, is there a form of martial arts that I can take that maybe I can learn a little bit of self defense, but I'm not having to worry about going from a white belt to an orange to a yellow to a on up the line. I don't need that type of stuff. And the guy looked at me and said, we have Krav Maga. And there's no belts to that. So me, I don't know what Krav Maga is. I've never heard of it. So I said, okay, I'll take it. So I go into Krav Maga, which apparently is one of the roughest forms of martial arts. And I'm 72. And I'm thinking, I'm coming out of there like I'm dead. And I'm dragging myself out. And every week I'd lean on the desk as I leave and I'd say, don't worry, I'm still alive. I'll be back. And I would go home and I'd just try to recuperate for the next couple days. I thought it was because I was 72. I didn't know it was because it's a rough form of martial arts. I had no idea. I thought it was just me. So I'm in it for about a year before I realized that, no, this is just tough stuff. But now I'm into it, and I'm enjoying the community of it. And meanwhile, there's a Taekwondo class going in another room, and the teenagers are wonderful kids. These are just wonderful young people. And so they're trying to talk me into taking Taekwondo. So I finally said, I was turning 73. I said, okay, I'll try Taekwondo. And the environment I was in with the people, I go to Champion Martial Arts, the people was so great that I didn't want to quit. So now I'm taking Krav Maga and Taekwondo for the next year. That's what got me into it. Is I thought I was getting into an easy form because you didn't have to worry about belts, and instead it was an incredibly, incredibly difficult, rigorous, violent form of martial arts.
Yep.
But I loved it. I loved it.
A fun insight. A lot of the more traditional martial arts and a lot of the harder ones, they didn't have the color belt ranking systems.
Mm-hmm.
Where you earned your black belt was actually an artifact. You'd never actually washed your belts.
Yes, I knew
and
this.
So they aged and became dark over time based on how much you worked at it.
Yes, that's true. I did martial arts, Taekwondo briefly when I was around 40, about 35, 40. And I did that purposely because we were homeschooling. And I decided, hey, this is a cool gym class for the kids. So we did a little bit then. Very different than the Taekwondo I'm in now. But really, I got into this thinking I was just inspired by $1 Million Baby, and I thought, oh, that fighting looks like fun. And I thought I had no idea what Krav Maga was.
Yeah,
I had no idea, but I just loved it. So I continue to do Krav Maga. No, I've recently had to stop that because my knees are bad now, and I'm hoping to get back into Taekwondo. And I do a lot of shooting every week. I shoot. And keep busy. I study. I'm trying to teach myself Spanish. And I read a lot of books. So, yeah.
Nice.
So
I think I told you about Peterson Academy.
Yes.
Jordan Peterson and his daughter, Michaela Peterson, she's married now. I can't think of her last name. I'll have to look that up again. But they started Peterson Academy, and the way they structured it is, I believe at the time of this recording, it's like $399 a year. And you get access to all their classes. As of now, I want to say they have close to 60 classes, and they're releasing 3 or 4 a month or something. Mm-hmm. But they went out and they specifically looked for the best professors in the world and gave them the mandate, come in and teach the class you always wished you could have taught, but were never able to.
Oh, isn't that wonderful?
Yes. So you have these people that are incredibly passionate about their topics, that are amazing, fantastic professors coming and teaching the course of their dreams.
That is wonderful.
And for $400 a year, like
Yeah,
you can't beat that.
you can't beat that.
And it's all online.
Yeah.
So you can just go watch the lectures. They're working on accreditation and everything. So you'll be able to get a degree, go through that path. They have quizzes and everything for them that they're working on. They're expanding. I believe they're working on the apps for phone and stuff now. But
that is truly, truly wonderful.
yeah, that came to mind when you're saying you're doing reading and always wanting something to do.
Yeah, I'm passionate about learning. I got a degree in paralegal research when I was younger, and then, as I said, special ed. And I went back for geology and did some research in geology in the Grants Uranium District. And I did some research for a project out of Los Alamos, and it was I would synthesize components of jet and rocket fuel, and then my partner would try to break them down. So the purpose of which, if there was a fuel spill on an Air Force base, we would be able to break it down before it hit the groundwater.
Nice.
And then I went back and got a master's degree in herbology from the School of Natural Healing in Springville, Utah. So, I mean, I like learning anything. And it just is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
I sat and talked with somebody today about silver because the silver prices are skyrocketing, and he was teaching me about how the difference between owning silver rounds versus junk silver, the old coins that are 70% silver. And we were talking, he taught me about the difference there. And I'm interested in learning anything. I'm hoping to get back into studying piano and learn piano again. And really, that's what I do. I just like learning anything.
I have that same mentality. I love learning, but you make me question something. Like, one of the things I've struggled with is because I'm so interested in everything, how do you choose anything?
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't think that I could have gotten a doctorate, which I wanted to do in geology, which was really my original passion, or I had considered medicine at one point. I had considered a lot of different things, but I don't think so. So I would get the knowledge, and then I would do it for a little bit, like I did paralegal research, and then I went on to special ed, and I did that for a little bit, and then I went on to geology and did that for a little bit. I want to learn too much that I don't think I could have stayed. I couldn't have gotten one career and stayed with it for my life. Even the geology, which I wanted to be since I was like 8 years old, and finally got it when I was like 50. I was very satisfied I got it. I enjoyed working in it for a period of time, but then that got put on the back burner. And then when I went to work at the Caldwell, Idaho Orchard as a missionary there, I worked as in the field of entomology. And I had some background in it because I had worked at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science in the geology section. But whenever I finished my work, I would go down and just visit my friends who were in entomology and arachnology. So I had some background in it. I took some courses they offered. And I took more courses up here, and I realized I'm fascinated by entomology. I could just do this, But I know that if I did just that, I would do that just for a few years, and I'd want to move on to the next thing,
Yeah.
I can't, I just want to learn too many things to stay focused on one thing. I could never have done a full career in one thing. I would have gone nuts.
I think I could do a full career in one thing, but one of the ways I've managed a little bit means the rest of my life has been a little chaotic in that I get hyper fixated on something and deep research and dive in and get super passionate about that. And I think a lot of people think I get bored of things, which isn't true. It's not that I get bored, it's that something else starts piquing my interest more.
So then
I start cycling and moving around. And oftentimes that does mean I end up back on something I've already done, and then I continue on working more on that for a little while, and then sometimes things fall off because the
Mhm.
rest of it's more interesting, but it's almost kind of like I'm circling, spiraling up. Sometimes I'm re-hitting on the same things. Sometimes I'm bringing in new things. Sometimes I'm kicking other things off. But it's not that I'm bored. It's that there's always something starts to grab my
This
attention more.
that's exactly what I do. That's exactly it. I've never been bored a day in my life. I mean, there's just I can't even understand somebody saying they're bored. It totally blows me away.
Yeah.
I just it's just too much out there. How in the world can you be bored?
That takes me back to when I was a kid. We never said we were bored. If you ever said you were bored, there's some grout that needs scrubbed with a toothbrush, or we have some
Yes.
toilets that need
Yes,
cleaned.
yes. We did that with our children too. Yes. If they were bored, they learned not to be bored really fast because if they were bored, there's dishes to be done, floors to be mopped. Don't worry about it.
I think there's an interesting thing there, though. I think boredom is actually a good thing. It's just misinterpreted anymore. We were still bored as a kids, but you don't say you're bored. You just learn what to do in boredom. I think too many people have to be fast scrolling that they can't sit and be bored and think and imagine.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think boredom has been warped out of using your imagination and into, well, I just need the next thing to consume, scroll on some social media platform or watching a movie or whatever it is. We don't often sit and reflect or think or even just sit in silence together sometimes. I think boredom can be a good thing that we've
It
done away with.
probably is. Yeah. And you learn to be creative through boredom in some ways because you figure out what to do with yourself.
Yeah.
And
Well, I mean, you hear a lot of creative people. Like if you think of musicians, or even people in a job that come across a really challenging problem. And what's the stereotype you hear? Oh, I thought of the solution while I was in the shower.
yeah.
Because you were forced to be bored. And so your mind starts engaging and thinking and processing. And we've taught everybody, don't be bored. And so I'm saying that cautiously with what you and I were talking about, where it's, if you're bored, I can find you something to do.
Yeah, no problem.
It's not that being bored is bad. It's being bored and not doing anything about it. There's plenty out there to do. Just
plenty out there to
do something.
That's right. That's right. So that's very true.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned your mission. I'm a little curious about that.
Well, in our church, we do missions for different things. You've seen the two young, either sisters or elders that may knock on doors. But we have lots of other missions too. We have something similar to Peace Corps. They have health missions. They have missions to build houses. They have missions to work in a temple. They have missions to do almost anything. I mean, there's, all sorts of things. Work in the handicapped, go over to an orphanage in Romania. There's missions for everything. So I have served a mission. First, I've done 2 years proselytizing, knocking on doors and teaching the gospel. I loved every blasted minute of it. And then later on, I served in the Denver temple as doing work. We do work for the dead in that. We believe that you can, you're married till death do you part, and we're married for time and all eternity for if you're married in the temple, if you're sealed in the temple. But not everybody's had that opportunity. And so we do the work for our ancestors in the temple, and we seal them for time and all eternity to their spouses if they haven't had the opportunity to be baptized, because we do believe baptism is need to be baptized to enter the kingdom of heaven. And so they may not have had that opportunity. There's millions and billions of people that haven't had that opportunity. So they will be able to, so we can do that work by proxy in a temple. So that's a kind of short, quick and dirty thing on this. So I served in the temple in Denver for a while. for multiple years. And then when I moved up here, we have missions. As I say, we have all sorts of them. So we have humanitarian missions and welfare missions. And what our church does is we raise a lot of food. In Marsing, we raise fruit. Now, someplace else we raise turkeys, and someplace else we raise beef and oranges and almonds. We have a whole grocery store of stuff all over the United States. And this food, so I worked in specifically with the Marsing Orchard. And we would raise the fruit, and then we have a cannery in Boise, and we would can it, or we would send it down to Salt Lake, and they'd do apple chips or applesauce or whatever. And this food gets sent out to the food banks, to Feeding America, not just within our church. We do have our own bishop's storehouse where if you needed food for your family, you're out of work, you can go to the bishop, and you need not be a member to do this, and get a food order, and you can go down and get food for free. And we pretty much grow the food and process the food. We also take some of it, and last I knew, we were putting it on pallets at shipyards. So if there's a disaster anywhere in the world, let's just say the tsunami in Indonesia, we have food stationed at places where we can get that food to the people there within 24 hours. And it's not just food. It's humanitarian clothing. It's hygiene kits. It's all sorts of things that we have stationed all over. But we have missionaries that work in the area where they're putting together the clothing, where they're putting together the hygiene kits or whatever it is. So like you have a hurricane like Katrina or something, we see this coming in, and the church in Salt Lake will load trucks full of food and water and hygiene kits and communication equipment, and they'll drive to Texas, and they'll wait till the hurricane is now safe, and then they'll drive further in and bring food and clothing to everybody.
Nice.
So, and we don't ask, if you're a member of the church. If we ask, do you need something? Do you need our help? And so my mission was to work on the farm, and I specifically identified insects and did things like that and helped people with the picking. Our members in the area, so all of our congregations, called wards, are responsible to go out and do the picking of the fruit or the sorting of the fruit. So it's all volunteer, and that gets all processed and brought to fruition.
Nice.
So that's what I did. I did that for 7 years. I worked up there.
I'm not LDS. I've had a couple friends, so there's a lot I don't know. My understanding, I guess, was completely wrong. I had thought mission was always like you go overseas for 2 years.
Oh gosh, no. You can serve a mission in your hometown. You can serve a mission on the phone if you want to do family history work. There's missions you could do on the phone.
Nice.
And you don't have to, we have missions designed for everybody. If you're autistic, if you're handicapped in some other way, we can find a mission. If you desire to serve, we can find a mission for you to do.
Nice.
And we will accommodate that. So everybody is included in this.
I've known a couple guys, and all of them had served missions overseas. A really good friend served 2 years in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess that
they thought it was always over Japan or something like that.
Overseas.
No. Some of it is. Obviously, some of it is. But no, we have a lot of missions in the United States, and you can serve mission on different farms, or building houses, or teaching hygiene classes to a rural area of the country, or oh gosh, there's so many different missions.
I like that a lot.
And you can do it here. You don't have to leave your home. You can serve a service mission here.
Yeah.
So
I definitely like that. one of the questions I was going to ask is, I guess the church in general, not just LDS, but like all churches, a lot of churches in general have prioritized missions and outreach like to other countries
Mm-hmm.
while not taking care of those at home. And I think the term a lot of people have used is you create baby Christians then. Like they never actually mature. Like they get saved, but then they don't know where to go from that. And then you're pushed out towards missions or something else. So I think it's really cool that you can do
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of missions close. I think that builds much stronger faith and maturity and interaction.
Yeah.
I I've always been worried about just only sending missionaries overseas, and like I said, not just in LDS,
Mm-hmm.
but I grew up in the Nazarene church, and we always had Mission Sunday where the missionaries would come in and talk about what they did overseas, and it's like, okay, yeah, but there's people struggling in our city too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, should we not take care of those
Yeah.
close to us? And that, I mean, our church does take care of us, those close to us,
Mm-hmm.
but that always just kind of stuck out to me. It's like,
Yeah.
I always
No.
felt called closer to those
No. We have
local.
missions local if you want, within the United States if you want to expand a bit further, or international if you want that.
Nice.
So it's whatever.
How, this is maybe a weird question, but do you select your own mission, or like are some missions assigned?
Well, I I selected the mission at the orchard because I lived near it and I wanted to do this type of work and serve a mission, and I lived right 3 miles from it. So I chose that. I could have easily chosen, say, a temple mission in Boise or something like that, or a mission I could have requested to do an employment mission, which would be out there to help local people find employment. So I could have done that. If you're a young person, in general, if you're going to go on, if you're not going to do it the way I did it, you submit papers to Salt Lake, and we believe in a prophet of God and in Revelation, and we have 12 apostles, and they receive revelation. And we believe that when you submit your papers to Salt Lake, say you and your wife want to go on a mission, you might put in, we kind of would like to go here or there. Here's our 3 separate ideas, or maybe I just don't care. Just let me know. And then Salt Lake uh, will receive that, and the apostles will pray over it, and they will decide where you go on a mission. So you have some input. I'd sort of like to get to Columbia, but um, at the same time, we would believe strongly enough that the Lord knows exactly where you need to be.
Yeah.
So there was one story, if I may, of a family who, a husband and wife, who were estranged from a child. I hadn't heard from him, didn't know where he was for years. But they couldn't do anything about that. And they decided to go on a mission in their senior years. And they just had one request, and that was that they don't go to a hot climate. Okay? Just, I don't care where you send me, just don't send me to a hot climate. And I'm told they submitted that, and they were immediately called to something like Louisiana or Mississippi, which of course is brutally hot and humid. But they had enough faith to go. And they went down and they began their mission, and they were knocking on doors, and one of the first doors they came to was their son.
Goodness.
So, I mean, this is revelation. The Lord knew where the son was, knew the parents wanted to know where the son was, and he led them to him. So we do believe in that revelation. We do believe that the Lord will guide us in and guide the apostles as to where we should go. But you can request to some extent.
Yeah.
You can sort of hope for.
Is that with every mission, or is that with like, are you required to serve a mission at some point? Can you serve multiple missions? I have
Oh,
so many
yeah.
questions.
No, that's okay. Just know I don't speak for the church, you know?
No, 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 no.
Okay.
This is just me out of pure curiosity.
Okay. So, our young boys are expected to serve missions. 19, 20-year-old area. Young girls are encouraged to think about it, but they're not required in any way. So that's how that would work with them as young people. Then as older senior adults, it's encouraged. They need a lot of senior adults to teach people all sorts of things, not necessarily the gospel, but, how to build a house, how to take
Mentoring.
care of mentoring, taking care of babies, whatever. And so it's encouraged that if you can, and to go on a mission, to go as a husband and wife, or even I could go as a single person, but I've done 9 years of this. So, not that I wouldn't want to do it more. And I don't know if I answered your question. It isn't required, but it's encouraged.
Okay. That was, again, everyone
And you
I've
can go
known
on.
grew up and they were guys, and they always kind of talked about it like we had to go serve our mission. So I had the general sense that at least the young men were required as soon as they were an adult
They're
to
expected to.
go
They're
on
not
a mission.
required. Nothing goes wrong. They're not kicked out or anything else like that. There's no repercussions if they don't go. So, I mean, we believe in that free agency, your choice. But you're encouraged to go, and they're kind of expected to go. You can go on as many missions as you sort of want. I mean, if you went off to, I don't know, Russia and came back, and I have a friend that went to Russia and came back, and then he wanted to go again. And I think there's a period of time, a year, 6 months, I don't know how long. You can go on another mission. He went then to Ukraine. But so I have a friend that just is on the third mission, and they're in Spain right now. But that's what they wanted to do. She wanted to do a first mission. I don't know, it was somewhere in the United States, and then they did a second mission in Boston, a little further away. And now she said this is our last mission, but she's doing a third mission, and it's in Spain. And so you can do it as often as you want, as often as your health will handle.
Nice.
So
I have to say that the mission aspect is one thing that I've always admired about the LDS Church. Growing up military, I got to move around, right? I want to be careful how I word this because I'm not talking down about anybody who doesn't get to move around, but I do think they are missing out. I think you have to get out and experience other cultures and other ways of thinking and how different people interact, because it's not what just your single small hometown is. Like, that's such a small area. And I think we get to be more compassionate, wiser, more accepting and loving when we're able to go out and experience all the different cultures and stuff. So I've always admired that, encouraging, like I said, I misunderstood and thought you had to go serve one outside the US. So that was my thought originally, was, that's really cool. You get to go learn, and then you carry those cultural experiences with you the rest of your life. Like, I always liked that.
Yeah, that is true. It has an advantage to it. It does have that advantage.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to go back to your husband, because you guys were married for 50 years. We talked a lot about communication, but what were some of the other things that really worked well for you guys? Because a marriage for 50 years is becoming unheard of in today's society.
Interesting, in our church, it's very common. It's, if you're old enough to be married 50 years, it's very common to be. We have a very low divorce rate, comparatively speaking. Gosh, I miss him terribly. I guess it would be more, in addition to communication, as I mentioned earlier, being so thankful for what they do. I think I wish I had I wish I had realized what I'm missing, because to some extent, you do get to begin to take each other for granted, and I wish I had even been more thankful and worked alongside of him even more. Um, there were it's interesting. There were things I wanted him to teach me that we never got to, such as tying knots. He was a Boy Scout. I wanted to know how to tie knots. Um, I don't know what you're looking for. What it just
I
it
just,
just
I'm not looking for anything specific.
just a commitment to each other and to each other's happiness. He had the harder job dealing with me, I would have to say, than I did him, because I was not well. And I don't really want to discuss that very much. But when in my younger years, I dealt with depression a lot. Um, but, and I had other things that I was just not physically well. But man, this man stood by me all the way, all the way. He was so honorable. And I would have to say, look for an honorable man. He would never watch anything on TV that was at all risque. So we by our church standards, we shouldn't. But even before we joined the church, or he joined the church, because I joined first, he joined 5 years later. He still that whole personality. He would not do that. Um, he He just was a dedicated, hardworking New England man,
Yeah.
just a good person.
I guess one way to phrase it is, if you were going to mentor, give advice to a newly married couple, from everything that you learned, what would you tell them?
Well, obviously, the communication. I'd say pray together every day, at least once a day. I'd say read scriptures together and discuss them every day. I'd say voice, if possible, why you're thankful to him or her every day. I'm thankful for the meal you made. I'm thankful for your helping with the dishes. Just voice thankfulness, gratefulness. Um, I Those are such important things. Look for the good in the person instead of looking for the annoying. I mean, there were things that were annoying with each other, I mean, I love to read, as I've told you, and sometimes when we drove in a car, I'd like to read. And my husband, of course, was a heavy communicator, and he wanted to talk. And so we'd be driving for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and I'm reading the book, and he'd start talking. And I think, oh my gosh, I'm in the middle of reading. But I always put the book down and listened. I never once told him, will you just let me read? I just never did that. I thought that. Don't kid yourself. But I never said that. Just trying to take the other's needs into consideration, even beyond yours, is really an important thing. Just so important. I don't know. There must be other things that I'm not thinking of right now.
Well, everyone's going to face hardships. So, what would you tell them about making it through hardships? People are going to have fights. You may hit times like you guys where, you didn't have a house, or you may hit times where you lose a job or don't have income. Like, what advice would you give them for getting through hardships and not just sticking together, but growing closer through it?
And we had that stuff, as you say. We had that period of homelessness, but there was another period where he was ill, and he lost his job for 3 years because he was ill. He couldn't work. He worked a little bit part-time, but he could not work full-time. And so, yeah, we were financially truly strapped. And we really were. But we continued through that time. The communication was the biggest thing. I worked at McDonald's at times, or I was a substitute teacher to pull in just a few extra bucks because we were broke. But we never stopped talking. And we didn't fight about money because we didn't have any money to fight about, I think the communication would let each other know that, I'd like to let's say I like to get this book, but I would know that this is just not possible now. We just don't even think about it. We don't have the money for another jar of peanut butter, never mind a book. So I think it was this I think that's really where the constant communication, the prayer, and always looking to the Lord and knowing the Lord has some plan there. And that's not easy to do. I mean, I can't say it's always easy to do, but I think it's just what held us together. And knowing that we're sealed for time and all eternity, and there is no divorce word, that doesn't happen. You know, so we wouldn't get divorced over money or over that type. I don't think we fought that much. I don't recall fighting with them.
You had to have had disagreements,
yeah.
But how did you manage those without them becoming fights?
I think I always, even more than is necessary, always respected him as the head of the household. And so when he would make a decision, even when I didn't want or didn't like or didn't agree with, I went along with it more to keep the peace. And I think I was pretty submissive, more than I would be now. I don't know.
If I had to guess, though, just from the little bit I know, I would venture to say he wouldn't make decisions lightly. Like, this is just what we're doing without your thoughts and input.
Oh, he never, ever, ever made decisions without my input and without us discussing it. Never. I mean, he was so communicative that when I was, let's say we're living in Marsing, and he would go into town for something from Home Depot. He'd say, I'm going to Home Depot. I'll be back in an hour. If he saw that he had to go to 4 other stores to get what he needed, he'd call back and say, I'm not going to be home at this point. I'm going to be delayed this much. I mean, he was really communicative. Sometimes that was one thing I didn't do so well for him, because if I'm saying I'm going to Joann's for material or something, and I'll be an hour, and I had to go to Michael's and Hobby Lobby, I would forget to call, and he would say, I was waiting for your call. I was listening. I was just waiting. I was worried. I was really worried about you. And I mean, he had sincere worry for that. And so, but that was my weak point. But it was always care and concern. He never got angry, but he was really concerned, but that was how much he communicated and how much sometimes I didn't.
Yeah.
So
I came to my mind. My wife was traveling back, 40-minute drive away, and she had called and said we were like 20 minutes out. And 40 minutes later, they still weren't here. And so I was waiting, and I tried calling and no answer. And, not like you're checking up on or mad or like, you got to be home now. No, it was like, okay, you're driving long distance. Did you get in an accident?
Yeah.
Are you safe? Are you okay?
I have a good example of that.
Kids?
I was visiting family in Venezuela. I have some family in Venezuela. And I knew that I was coming back, I don't know, the end of September for some reason. And I brought a friend with me who had to come back and had a doctor's appointment on 9/11. And so I decided to come back the 10th of September on that fateful day, that fateful year. And so I flew into Dallas from Venezuela, And my husband, I didn't think to tell him, hey, I'm back in the United States. That's a big deal. And then we have 9/11 and the planes aren't flying. And he's wondering, has anybody heard from Barbara? And he's calling all our kids, has anybody heard from her? And I'm diddly bopping around Dallas with my friend taking her to doctor's appointments. And he was so concerned. He really was. He wasn't angry, but he was really concerned. Why didn't you call me? I was really wondering where you were and were you safe and were you going to get back into the country? And that was it. He would have called immediately.
Yeah.
I was focused on my friend who was not well.
Yeah. As you're talking about him and like based on the other advice questions, I'm going to take a stab in the dark at another thing I think's happening or happened, and that was twofold: mutual respect, but also, if not always, at least the majority of the time, assuming positive intent.
Yes. Yeah. I would have to say almost all the time for him was positive intent. It was not anger, it was concern. And me, I can be somewhat flighty, and I would just forget, and
well, I mean, even as far as like fights, like if you're always assuming positive intent of the other person.
That's true. Or even if it's not positive intent, it was, thinking of the homeless time, it was definitely the best we could do at that point. It wasn't like, why don't you get it together and, do better at this or do something different. It was all we could do at that moment. And I was aware of that. And he was aware of that. It wasn't good, but there was never any negative like, well, if you had done this, then we wouldn't be here. That one we just didn't have. It was always, I guess that would be positive intent. We always assumed that.
You highlighted another thing there, which was, I would guess neither of you really looked back a lot with regret, that you would have considered that a waste of time.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, I guess let me clarify that. Maybe not regret, but you're not looking back and placing blame or stuff like that. Like maybe regret in the, I wish things could have gone slightly differently. But not looking back and saying this was your fault, placing blame, or if you had just done this.
I don't think he ever did that with me that I recall. And I don't recall ever doing that with him either. I don't know. We just never played the blame game that I can think of.
I don't view it as an overly useful game.
It really isn't. It really isn't. I think sometimes, no. I would have to say we just didn't bother with that one. I don't even think that entered my mind. And I always knew that he did everything he could, and he was my biggest support. I sometimes think he lived vicariously through me for all the crazy things I did, We were up in Barrow, Alaska once. Now, he worked out of state a lot, and he evaluated fire departments. And so if a town had a fire department west of the Mississippi, he possibly was there evaluating the fire department. And that's what determines your fire insurance cost. So he was working in Alaska, and I went up with him to Barrow, and he just, amidst his work, that he's working with all these firemen and doing all the things he has to do, he is just out there trying to do things to make this a great accomplishment for me too. I met somebody who was going to go swimming in the Arctic Ocean 3 days after the ice went out, become part of the Polar Bear Club. And I thought, should I try that? He said, yes, you definitely should. And so I did. But he's not going to do this. There's no way. But he was right there for me doing it. taking pictures and encouraging me on. We went down to Kodiak, and he saw that they had piles of fishing boats out there, and he said, I want you to try fishing off of Kodiak Island. And so I went fishing off of Kodiak Island. He was bragging to everybody about the fish I caught, and then he had me take one of these salmon to a restaurant and ask them to cook it right there, and we did. Or hunting. I liked hunting. Now, he didn't get into hunting till a lot later. I went hunting with a group, but he didn't. He was not into that. And but man, I come home with this deer, and he is telling everybody and showing pictures like a new baby. He said, "This is the deer my wife got. This is a picture of my wife and the deer," and he wanted me to put it up, and I never got to. That was my own laziness. In Sportsman's Warehouse, where they have the pictures when you come in with all what you got, and he wanted it up there because he wanted everybody to see his wife had done this. He wasn't interested in hunting, but he wanted to. I think he lived vicariously sometimes through me. I'd go down to the Amazon with my family, and he didn't want to go. It was not his thing, but he was right there behind me all the way. He just wanted me to have that experience, and he was my biggest support. He was a tremendous support for school, and yet we did still work together on that. I mean, when we didn't have money and there was a women's meeting at church, let's say, and it was too tight. We didn't live near the church, so this was a distance issue, and gasoline was high, and we didn't have the money. And we would sit down, and he would talk, and he'd say, we're really strapped. Can I ask you not to go to the women's meeting at church today, because I just don't think we have the money for the gas. And he did so much for me that of course I stayed home. Of course I did. It was just, he was my biggest support. He was wonderful. I just feel badly for women that don't have men like this. He was great. He was great. I wish I had been even more of, if anybody's going to be critical of something, it's me. I get critical of, I wish I had done more for him, but.
Yeah. I have to say my wife has been my biggest cheerleader and very supportive, like starting the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Anything I do, I've told people you sacrifice for each other.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to make sacrifices anymore, but there's a huge role in sacrificing for each other.
It really is.
Jordan Peterson has a concept of, like, if you're being selfish, you think of that typically like, oh, it's just about me.
Mm-hmm.
But people misinterpret that. When people are being selfish, it's only about you, only in that moment. Really, we shouldn't think of ourselves as one person. We should think of ourselves as a person in every individual moment of time. I'm going to be, yes, I'm the same person, but I'm a different person in a year. And so in considering others, one of the ways that we learn to take care of others is also in taking care of ourselves. You have to sacrifice in the here and now to take care of yourself in the long term.
Mm-hmm.
And that projects into other relationships, into yourself, in your health, in whatever you do. But nobody wants to make sacrifices anymore.
Yeah.
There's no delayed gratification. It's like when we first got married, there was a time I was working 75 hours a week and she was working 80 hours a week. I would start at 1 p.m. and she was starting at like 6 a.m.
Oh,
So,
wow.
we saw each other maybe an hour to at most on days. I was working 75 hours in 5 days.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, I had 2 days off, but
You were dead by then.
Yeah, I was working 17 and a half hour days. Like,
Yeah.
you hit that and then it's just conk out. But during the week, we saw each other maybe for an hour or two at most. And we did that for a while because you're sacrificing to set up your long term future. And then I've come across people, well, I don't want to work this part time job because then we wouldn't have this 4 hours
Oh
together.
gosh, yes.
And it's like part of being each other's cheerleader and taking care of each other is considering beyond just this moment. Like,
That's right.
you got to sacrifice some here and the now to have all that in the future.
That's really true. I agree with that completely.
Yep.
I really do.
It sounds like you guys really lived that out as you were describing. Like, yes, we were in the tent, but we know we're going to get there. We know we
Yeah.
have this house. We know it's rough now. Because I'm sure there was another option of sell all the materials, sell
There
the,
was that, yeah.
but like, no, we can sacrifice in the moment now, and then we have this in the future.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. You're right.
But
Yeah, we there were things I would have liked to have done that I didn't because, he like I wanted to go to a shooting school in Nevada, and as a couple, I wanted to do this for our anniversary, and he wasn't into shooting at that time. And he said no. And I was so devastated. But I said, this is the way it is, And so when he died, by the way, I went. but yeah, you sacrifice some of what you want to do for your partner.
yeah.
And your life, in a sense, for him. One of the most tender moments that I will never wish to forget was when he was sick. He died of COVID, and he was home at one point, and he was in bed, and he could not, he was so weak he couldn't move. And I made some soup, and he couldn't even eat it. I had to spoon feed him the soup. And I will always remember that as one of the most tender moments of my life, when I was able to sit there and feed him and give to him everything. And it was just precious to me. And I am so thankful for that memory.
Yeah.
So thankful for it. So,
It's a beautiful moment.
yeah, it really was. It really was. So, when he was in the hospital, they set up, the hospital staff, one of the nurses, wonderful person, set up my iPad so that I could FaceTime him. Now, he was in a coma, but I could FaceTime anyway, and I would talk to him, and I would sing to him while he was in a coma, because they wouldn't let you come and visit
Yeah.
during that time. So I would take time and I would just sing to him. They said the first time it was really weird because, of course, all the patients have microphones in their room in case something happens and they wake up or whatever. And so they said the nurse's station was everybody's peaceful. The nurse's station, all of a sudden, I hear the singing going on. Then where's the singing coming from? But yeah, so I sang to him. Those are precious times.
Yeah. There's been studies that I've seen that, especially around music, a lot of people that are in comas can hear what's going on around them. But especially music seems to cut that surface.
Really?
Yeah. They've had people who have been in a coma almost show no brain activity. And they hear music, especially songs that they've been familiar with or they knew. I believe one of the key age ranges is when they were 13 or 14. They start showing more brain activity.
Really?
Yeah, the music speaks out to them.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah.
Did not know that.
So it's a beautiful moment.
Yeah, so that was some of my good memories. Even though they were awful and that he was dying, but they were still precious between us.
Yeah.
It was still precious. So,
Well, Did you have any other words of wisdom on any other topics we didn't discuss?
Probably, but I can't think of them. No, probably I can't think of any particularly. Um,
If you want to do martial arts, treat it like Nike and just do it.
just do it. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah. Well, I am pondering a way of accomplishing that. I had the privilege of meeting with the grandmaster this weekend from Taekwondo, and I said I had to get out of it because I have no more cartilage in my knee, and he said I lost all the cartilage in my knee by the time I was 40, and he's still doing it. And so he gave me some ideas of how to do it and how they will accommodate that. And then I met another master who has two prostheses, two legs. He lost them in an IED in, I don't know, in the Middle East somewhere. And he's still doing Taekwondo. So I'm thinking of trying to push this, getting back. Krav Maga I will not go back to. That is way
rough.
too rough, I loved every blasted minute of it, but it is too rough. But
Yeah. There's a lot that you can overcome. I wish I had done more of it. I can't claim any proficiency. I did Kyokushin karate for 6 months with phenomenal people in Arizona. My teacher, Hanshi Fred Buck, one of his students had started his own dojo. He was a 5th degree black belt. He's blind.
Oh, wow.
But 5th degree black belt, if I remember right, in Kyokushin karate, and I forget his degree. We did Aki Jiu-Jitsu at the same time, so he might have been a 5th degree in Aki Jiu-Jitsu as well. But he held black belts in both, but he was blind. And he was also the drummer for their church.
Oh my gosh. That's really cool.
Yeah, like things come up and there always seems to be ways that you can...
seems to be ways around it, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping I can do that. I'm hoping I can find a way around that. And I know at Champion Martial Arts, they're willing to work with me and find ways around it. So I guess one of the things I'd encourage is anybody to try this, even if you're older. If I can start at 72 and still be doing it at 74, it's not like I've been doing it all my life and I'm built up to it, but it's been a joy to me. It's been a joy. So
martial arts, in my experience, has been more of a family community than almost anywhere else I've been.
That is true. And that's one of the reasons I don't want to give it up, because this is a real family for me. These people are incredible. And I don't know if other schools are like that. Obviously, you've met that, so you must have run into that where you were. But I know at Champion, it's very much that way. It's. I mean, I know everybody. They know me. We talk. I mean, it's a real family. It is really a family, and I am not really willing to give that up yet.
Yeah, I mean, even if you get to a point you can't get out on the mat, you can still volunteer like you did.
Yeah.
Come hang out. Come.
Yeah.
Work the front desk.
That's true. That's true. In fact, I
cheer on.
I don't know if I'm going to try to go back this week. Because I'd be doing it without my doctor's approval yet. But if I'll probably go in, and I have some girls, that your daughter being one, and there's 2 other girls that want to learn to crochet. So I'm going to teaching them to crochet.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, it's just such a family. It just is a good group of people.
Yeah. I haven't been to a lot of places. Like I said, I was in Arizona, and then we started at a different Taekwondo dojo before moving to this one. And everywhere that I've been, it has been family.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just wonderful. It really is.
It was very close-knit in Arizona. If I remember right, he wouldn't take on more than 10 students at a time. So it was even more close-knit. and there's pros and cons to everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have a huge martial arts family at Champions.
Oh gosh, yes, it is huge.
And,
They need a bigger building.
sometimes you don't get as much one-on-one instructor interaction, but there's also more instructors, and people are proficient in different areas.
Yeah, and they train
you learn a lot
people
from
to
each
become
other.
instructors.
Yep.
So a lot of leadership training in that class, and it's just wonderful.
Yeah.
It really is. Really is. So I can't think of anything else that I would want, that I missed.
I'm sure we'll both think of
We'll
things,
both think of things as we
30 seconds after we end.
we end it. That's right. That's right. I've enjoyed this time together.
Yeah.
I really have.
Me too. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, no problem. No problem.
Yeah. Well, thanks for watching the Brent and Peck podcast.